Welcome to Revenge with Lyra.
The tiles were cold. My palms pressed flat against them, searching for air like it was hiding somewhere between the cracks. I could hear my mom's voice above me, sharp, impatient. "You're fine. Stop making a scene." Her words didn't reach me the way she thought they did. They were muffled, like she was yelling through water. I tried to respond, but my chest wouldn't open. Every inhale felt like a thief breaking in and taking half before leaving. From the other side of the counter, my sister laughed, the sound thin and cruel. "She's being dramatic again," she said. "She's always like this when she wants attention." Attention? I wanted air. My vision tightened, edges turning black. The room tilted like the floor was sliding away from me. Somewhere, a door opened. Boots on tile. A low voice, male. "EMT here. Where's the patient?" He crouched beside me, gloved hands lifting my chin gently. His eyes flicked to my lips. I didn't understand the look that passed over his face until he squeezed his radio. "Dispatch, we're gonna need police backup." Quietly. "Why police? Why now?" I tried to ask, but no sound came out, just a wheeze that scared even me. And then, for the first time since I hit the kitchen floor, my mother's voice broke. "What are you talking about? She's fine." The EMT cut her off, his voice calm but razor sharp. "She's not fine. And I think we both know why." The siren outside didn't wail. It purred low, almost hidden. Through the corner of my dimming vision, I saw the faint strobe of blue and red lights bouncing off the window. The EMT had placed an oxygen mask over my face by then. The first rush of air hit like a wave, burning its way into my lungs before settling in my chest. My hands trembled as I held onto it, as if it could disappear any second. "Pulse ox is low, oxygen improving," he muttered into his radio. But then, leaning closer, his tone changed, almost too soft for the room to hear. "Stay with me. We're not letting this get covered up." Covered up. The words buzzed in my head, jagged and loud. From behind him, my mom paced. "She's fine. She's just overreacting," she said, her voice brittle now like glass about to crack. The EMT didn't look at her. Instead, he turned to the officer who just stepped in. Uniform neat, eyes scanning the kitchen like he was reading a crime scene. "Ma'am, we'll need you to step into the other room," the officer said to my mother. My sister's smirk faltered. "Wait, this is ridiculous. She's just being—" "Ma'am," the officer repeated, sharper this time. "Now." They didn't see me watching, my breathing still ragged under the mask. They didn't see the way the EMT slipped a small evidence bag into the officer's hand, something he'd picked up from the floor near my spilled water glass. The officer glanced inside, then his jaw tightened. He whispered something I couldn't hear, but the EMT's answering nod told me one thing: this wasn't an accident. And for the first time, a cold realization wrapped itself around me, tighter than the panic ever had. I wasn't just fighting to breathe, I was fighting to stay alive. The ride to the hospital was a blur of white ceilings and muffled voices. Every bump in the road rattled my ribs. Every whisper between the EMT and the officer in the front seat made my stomach churn. When we arrived, the EMT wheeled me straight past the waiting area, his pace quick, urgent. The officer stayed close behind, his hand resting lightly on his holster, as if he wasn't sure what we'd walk into next. In the exam room, a nurse drew blood, while another attached monitors to my chest. My oxygen mask hissed softly, but underneath it, I could taste something strange, metallic, bitter. The doctor came in minutes later, flipping through my chart. His eyes scanned the numbers on the screen, then flicked up to meet mine. "We're running a talk screen," he said evenly. "Do you remember what you ate or drank in the last hour?" I swallowed hard. "Just water." From the glass on the counter. The EMT and officer exchanged a glance. "That glass is in evidence," the EMT said quietly. The doctor didn't react, just nodded and stepped out. But I could feel the tension pulsing in the room, like everyone knew something they weren't ready to say. Through the open doorway, I caught a glimpse of my mom and sister in the waiting area. My mom was leaning forward, speaking fast to someone on the phone. My sister, she was scrolling through her phone, one leg bouncing nervously. The officer's radio crackled. A voice came through, low but clear. Tuck screen on the glass came back positive. Same compound found in the patient's blood sample. The officer's eyes shifted back to me, steady and unflinching. "Miss, this wasn't random," he said. And just like that, the kitchen, the gasps, the laughter, it all snapped into place. They hadn't just dismissed me. They had tried to erase me. The officer stepped fully into the room, his voice low but cutting through the hum of machines. "Ma'am, I need to ask you, do you feel safe going home tonight?" The question hung there like a loaded gun. Safe? The word felt foreign. I thought of the kitchen floor, the way my mom's voice had sliced through my panic like it was nothing. Of my sister's smirk, that small, satisfied curl at the corner of her mouth. Of the bitter taste that still clung to the back of my throat. My silence must have been enough of an answer, because he continued, "We're going to keep you here for observation. I've requested protective detail." Protective detail. For me. Because of them. From the hall, I could hear the shuffle of movement, the unmistakable weight of boots against linoleum. 2 more officers had arrived. The doctor returned, this time with a printout in his hand. "Confirming it's ethylene glycol," he said grimly. "We're starting treatment now." I blinked. "That's antifreeze, right?" He nodded, his expression a mix of pity and controlled fury. "It doesn't take much." Through the doorway, I caught sight of my sister finally looking up from her phone as one officer approached her. She straightened, confusion flickering across her face, until she saw me watching. Her lips formed a single word. "You." My mom's voice rose sharply then, loud enough for the whole ward to hear. "She's making this up. She always exaggerates." But the officer didn't even flinch. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to come with us." In that moment, I realized, whatever happened next, the story they'd been telling about me for years was about to collapse. And this time, I wasn't the one struggling to breathe. They led my mother and sister down the hall, their voices still sharp, still dripping with the same false confidence they'd always carried. But it didn't matter. For the first time, their words didn't stick to me like chains. The door to my room shut with a soft click. The sudden quiet was almost too much. The doctor sat beside my bed, setting the printout on the tray table. "Do you know how this could have gotten into your system?" I stared at the paper, at the ugly lines of numbers I couldn't fully understand. "I drank tea," I said slowly. "At the kitchen table. My mom made it." He nodded once, writing something down. "I'm obligated to tell you. This was deliberate." Deliberate. The words sank in deep. The officer from earlier returned, his expression gentler now. "They'll be questioned separately," he said. "We've secured your home. You won't be going back there tonight." I closed my eyes for a moment, the image of my little box of belongings flashing in my mind. The things I'd have to collect eventually. But there was no grief in the thought, only release. When I opened them again, I saw someone standing just outside the glass panel of my room. A man in a dark coat, his hair dusted with gray. My uncle. Mom's older brother. The one person in our family who'd ever told me to keep a bag packed, just in case. When they let him in, he didn't say hello. He just put a set of car keys on the table. "You're not going back," he said quietly. "I'll make sure of it." For the first time all day, I felt my shoulders lower. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but tonight, I wouldn't be alone. And I knew they would never see me the same way again. By morning, the story had already begun to spread, not through gossip, but through official channels. A detective came by with a folder, laying it open so I could see the photographs they'd taken from the kitchen. The tea mug, the container on the counter, the residue inside the sink drain. It was surreal, staring at evidence that had nearly stopped my heart. "They aren't admitting to anything," he said, his tone calm but weighted. "But the lab results are solid. It's going to move forward whether they cooperate or not." I sat there, clutching the thin hospital blanket, feeling the lines of my life rearrange themselves. The family I'd spent years defending gone. The home I thought I had gone. My uncle walked in just as the detective left. He was carrying a bag, heavy with the sound of zippers and metal. Everything you need to get started, he said simply. When I opened it, I saw clothes, a prepaid phone, and a neatly folded sheet of paper. It was a lease agreement.
Signed.
Paid in full for 6 months. You don't have to thank me, he said. Just promise me you won't go back there. That promise felt like the only thing I could keep. Later, when I stood at the hospital's glass doors with my bag over my shoulder, the air felt different. Lighter, colder, but clean. My uncle's car was waiting at the curb, but across the street, 2 familiar figures stood behind the yellow police tape that now wrapped around my childhood home. My mother's arms were crossed. My sister's eyes were red, not from guilt, but from rage.
I didn't wave.
I didn't speak. I simply turned away, letting the door close behind me. The new apartment was small, barely big enough for a bed, a table, and a single chair, but it was mine. No echoes of slammed doors. No footsteps creeping up behind me. Just silence, the good kind. For the first week, I didn't leave much. Not out of fear, but because I was learning how to breathe without waiting for permission. Then the calls started. Unknown numbers. Voicemails from blocked IDs. My sister's voice would come through, dripping venom. You've ruined everything. Mom's a wreck. I hope you're happy. Then my mother, pretending at softness. Come home and we'll talk. You're making this worse than it is. Worse? They had almost buried me. The detective had warned me this would happen, that the moment consequences touched them, they'd rewrite the story, paint themselves as the victims. But I didn't expect the next message. It wasn't a call. It was a video. The screen lit up with footage of my old bedroom. Every drawer pulled out. Every wall stripped bare. My books, my photographs, my clothes gone. And then, my sister's face appeared on screen. Consider this your final wake-up call, she sneered, before shutting the camera off. I should have felt rage. But instead, I smiled. Because what she didn't know was that I had already taken every document, every important possession, every piece of my real life, weeks before the night in the kitchen. Everything she destroyed, replaceable. And tomorrow, she was going to learn just how replaceable her comfort was too. Morning broke with a soft gold light through my blinds, a new kind of dawn. The kind where I wasn't bracing for footsteps or shouts. The kind where I got to choose what came next. I had been patient. Too patient. When the police investigation concluded, charges were filed. Not just for assault, but for something far uglier. The tests had revealed deliberate poisoning, traces of a substance no one could accidentally sprinkle into food. The evidence was irrefutable. My mother's fingerprints on the container. My sister's text to a friend bragging about finally teaching her a lesson. Court day came fast. I walked in quietly, dressed in navy, my hair pinned back, calm, collected. They shuffled in from the other side, both pale, both glancing at the reporters gathered in the back. The judge read the charges. Gasps filled the room when the medical report was entered into evidence. The EMT who had saved me took the stand. And when the prosecutor asked if my life had been in danger, he didn't hesitate.
Yes.
Minutes away. The verdict came before lunch.
Guilty.
Sentencing deferred, but strict no-contact orders issued immediately. Outside, cameras flashed, voices shouted questions. I didn't answer a single one. I simply walked past, my heels clicking on the courthouse steps, my breath steady for the first time in years. Later that night, I made one call, not to gloat, not to argue, just to leave a single sentence on my sister's voicemail. Turns out, I was fine after all. And for the first time, they had no words. Sometimes the people we expect to protect us are the ones who hurt us the most, and that betrayal cuts deeper than any wound a stranger could cause. This story shows how cruelty can hide behind a mask of family, disguised as jokes or lessons, until the truth rips that mask away. The mother and sister in this story didn't just ignore suffering, they mocked it, dismissed it, and turned it into entertainment. What they didn't realize is that every laugh, every cruel remark, was building a case against them without them even knowing. It's a reminder that silence is not weakness. The narrator could have fought back in the moment, argued, screamed, tried to defend herself. But she chose to observe, gather the truth, and let the facts speak for themselves. When the EMT quietly called for backup, when the tests came back, and when the fingerprints and messages were exposed in court, justice arrived without the need for shouting matches or public scenes. That's a powerful lesson. Sometimes the loudest form of strength is the quiet confidence that the truth will surface. It also teaches us about paying attention to the small signs. Many people would brush off dizziness, shortness of breath, or even the strange taste in food, telling themselves not to make a fuss. But ignoring those instincts can be dangerous. Listening to your body and trusting that something is wrong could save your life, just as it did here. This story forces us to ask hard questions. Why do some families treat kindness as weakness? Why does jealousy or resentment fester in people who are supposed to love us? And most importantly, how much are we willing to tolerate before we finally say, enough? The narrator didn't just survive, she reclaimed her life. She walked out of court free, breathing fully, no longer trapped in a home that minimized her existence. The final call to her sister wasn't revenge in the traditional sense. It was closure, a single, calm reminder that they had lost all power over her. If you've ever been dismissed, mocked, or gaslight when you were at your lowest, remember this. You don't owe explanations to those who choose not to see your pain. Protect yourself. Document everything. And when the time comes, let the truth do the talking. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it arrives in complete, devastating silence.